materials I'll be using are these graphite and charcoal pencils in a range of different shades, which, by the way, are actually from my art kit that I got when I was 9, so nothing special or incredibly expensive there. I'll also be using this eraser, which has a more pointed side and a normal side, and guys, this literally is just a decent eraser that I found lying around the house, and all I did was snip down the end into a sort of point, so you can totally make one of these yourself. I actually have a short on that, and if you want to check it out, I'll leave it in the description box below. In addition to all that, I'll also be using this ordinary paintbrush for blending. Alright, and now on to sketching. First off, I'm starting with a sketch of my reference photo. There are many ways to make a sketch, but for this portrait, I simply traced, and to do that, I just printed out my reference photo and placed my blank piece of paper on top, then carefully placed that on a glass tabletop. Next, I turned on the flashlight on my phone and shone it underneath the table itself, and just traced the outlines of the primary parts of my reference like so. You can also totally do this against a window if that works better for you. Since I didn't film the tracing process with this particular portrait, as a demonstration, I'm using the footage I took of doing this from other projects. Also, notice that my sketch is very light, if you can see it at all here, and I haven't drawn in any shadows or details. Also, don't worry if your sketch looks ugly. Its purpose is just to get your proportions right. Okay, so now I'm shading in the darker areas and shadows of my portrait, and I'm just referencing my photo and eyeballing it as best as I can. Also, I wanted to mention a tip for this that I found really helpful. When you're drawing a graphite or charcoal piece, make sure your reference photo is black and white so that you can better identify where the shadows are and not get distracted by the colors. Another trick I found useful is to flip your project and reference photo upside down and shade from that angle. I feel that this really helped me, especially during those times when I felt that I was starting to have trouble with my shading. Drawing upside down helps you break down a complex portrait into simple shapes, making it easier to draw what you see, as opposed to drawing what you subconsciously think something should look like. As you can see here, I was having a bit of trouble with the mouth, so I just pulled up the printed out version of my reference photo to help me out. Also, I know this is sort of random, but my apologies for the amount of my head and hair you're seeing in this video. I try my best to keep away from the camera, but as you can see, I sometimes forget. So I hope the more I grow here on YouTube, the more I'll grow in the more technical film side of making videos. And speaking of videos and filming, you've also probably noticed by now that the lighting and setting here is constantly changing, and that's because I don't yet have a studio sort of set place where I can do my art, so I just end up drawing all over the house wherever is convenient or available at the time. You can even see the carpet in some of them, and that's because I'm literally drawing on the floor. And really, that just goes to show that you don't need to wait for life to be perfect to start doing what you love. And me sort of letting go of perfection is the whole reason why I'm here. Honestly, I've been wanting to start an art channel for quite some time, but every time I would tell myself, hey, maybe you should start, I would find something holding me back. I would tell myself, look, I don't have the proper studio set up, I don't have the best art supplies, my skills might not even be the best out there, And it was just an endless cycle of disappointment. But at one point, I'm like, look, there's so many people out there who lose their time being fixated on perfection, and then years down the road, they realize that if they started following their dreams way back when, they would just be so much farther than they are at the moment. So that said, I just started, and here I am, and I'm glad to be here. By the way, thank you so much for watching until this point. Your support really means a ton to me. Now, moving on to the hair. I watched a couple tutorials on how to draw hair before this, and I found the most helpful one for me was a tutorial from Rapid Fire Art, which I'll leave in the description below for those who are interested. After I sort of finished drawing the bangs, you can see me coming back and lengthening them, and that's because a day later I returned to the portrait and decided that the bangs were a bit too short. And now that leads us to the next tip I wanted to share, the importance of taking breaks. The key part in taking these breaks is to take them the moment you hear a little voice in your head going, you know what, I think I should stop. Whenever you hear that voice in your head, take my advice and actually stop. And by stop, I mean put your pencil away, get up, and leave. And trust me, when you do this, don't listen to the other voice in your head going, but why don't I just add a bit more here? Because, and I say this from experience, you'll end up adding and adding those little things to your portrait until you screw up your piece. And no, I am not exaggerating. Sometimes, in my opinion, one of the key differences between a good artist and a great artist is knowing when to stop. Yes, you can and should come back to your piece later, but taking these breaks clears your mind and excess emotions, and every time you come back, you see your piece as a whole and from a whole new different perspective, making you add or change some things that you didn't notice before. I also think I should mention that I'm not drawing the parts of this portrait in any specific order, but I thought that before I start to darken my shading on the face, I should first darken the hair to see how dark I should make the shading on the face so that it creates balance. So now I'm going in again and shading in the shadows with darker pencils just to make them more refined, and then I'm going in with my brush and smoothing it out if I feel I need to. Also, I'm resting my hand on a plastic bag while I draw so as not to smudge what I already drew underneath it, and then I'm just going in again with my pencil and I'm adding and refining some more details. And now I'm starting on the neck, and what I did was look closely at my reference photo and draw all the shapes and shadows that I saw, even if they didn't always make much sense. I found this a bit challenging, but I prevailed and ended up pretty satisfied with the results. Next, I'm going in with my pencil once again and adding final adjustments and details, and also darkening the shading a tad more in some places. And after that, all that was left was to add my signature and the date, which, FYI, took me a couple of tries to get right. Leave me a comment down below if you're also that sort of person. And yeah, so then I just stuck it in a picture frame and gave it to my grandmother as a birthday gift. And alright, I'll see you around in future videos, but until then, bye bye!